Hey, John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I got a question about investing in property. I do a couple of videos on property investment since I do some real estate investment. And this email comes from John, and John says, "Hi John, myself and my wife have been considering getting into the property investment market for a long time. The time has never been quite right, but things have improved a lot over the last 12 months for us financially, and now feels like a good time to get the ball rolling. We live in a rented house at the minute. It's not super big, but it's big enough that we can manage for another 4 or 5 years possibly. We have a 5-year-old boy who will likely outgrow his bedroom by then. We've got about $250K to invest. Personally, I'd like to throw all that money in and purchase, say, 3, potentially 4 decent quality apartments for rental. My wife has a slightly different perspective. She thinks we should invest in 1 to 2 flats and buy a smallish house for us. That way we avoid paying rent to our own landlord and pay our own mortgage instead. I'd rather wait until we've built up enough equity to be able to buy a medium or even a large size house for us. We've moved several times during our life and it's always stressful, and I'm in no hurry to put my family through that again. My question is, if you were starting out now, what would you do? Thanks." So John, I am more than happy to cause a even bigger fight between a husband and a wife. I'll gladly do this for you, which this will inevitably do, no matter what advice I give you, since one of you is going to be right and one of you is going to be wrong. So, with that said, I've definitely got some good advice for you. At least I think it's good advice, which is, and I'm not just saying this because she's your wife, but I think for the most part your wife is right, and let me tell you why. There's a couple of reasons. So here's the thing to think about. This comes kind of a foundation of investing in real estate. This is, I think everyone has to start at this place, which is basically, if you live in a place, regardless of where you live, you are using up space and taking up money, right? Potential money. It costs you money to live somewhere. It doesn't matter, a lot of people say, well, should I rent or buy? The only difference between renting and buying is that if you rent, you're paying money to a landlord. It costs you so much to live. You got to pay rent somewhere. And if you buy, you're paying rent to yourself. You are your own landlord. Regardless, you still require the same amount of money to live. And what I mean by that is that the value of the space that you need is a concrete thing. It's not something that changes whether you buy or rent. So for example, let's say that you're renting a place for $1,000 a month. Well, let's say you buy a place that has a mortgage of $2,000 a month. Well, if you could live in a $1,000 a month place, then buying a big house that costs you $2,000 a month, you're essentially you're losing $1,000 a month. We can talk about how you're investing it in the principal and whatnot, but essentially just from of what it costs you to live versus what you're paying, you're at a loss of $1,000 because you have too big of a place. So that's why I would say that what you want to do is probably closer to what your wife is suggesting, which is for the 2 reasons. One, you want to buy the smallest place as possible, right? And the reason why is because a house can be an asset or it can be a liability. A house is an asset, in my opinion, when you're getting a benefit from it, when it's not too big, when it's not more space than you need. Anything more than you need, you're paying extra for, and it's costing you, right? It's not an investment because you could rent a place that was smaller that would cost you less money. So you want to buy as small of a place as possible, especially if you're starting out in investment, right? The more money that you save, the better, right? The more that you're going to be able to invest and earn money off of. The more money that you spend, essentially you're going to waste it if you buy a bigger house for yourself, because that money is not going to go to any good use. It's just going to be, you're going to increase the amount that you take up. So with that said, the other reason why I would suggest buying a house is like I said, about renting. You are your own landlord, right? One of the things about, you kind of get one of these, right, when you invest in real estate, which is you get one perfect tenant that always pays the rent on time. and that's you. That's the house you live in. So you, if possible, if the market allows it, you should try and buy a house as your first investment and pay the rent to you. Only if the house is small enough or it makes sense. So let me kind of spin this around a little bit. I know that we're getting kind of complicated here, but let's say that you bought a big house. And let's say that you lived in that big house as an investment. Well, let's say that you could pay $1,000 a month to rent a place, or you could pay $2,000 a month mortgage for this big house. It's a nice big house. Well, what you got to think about is if you didn't live in that big house, you could have rented that big house to someone for $2,000 a month. So you're actually losing that $1,000 a month, and you don't want to do that. You want to maximize the amount of money that you're earning and saving so that you can invest more. So in the long run, you're going to do better by having your own place that you're renting to yourself. You're the perfect tenant, right? That's going to pay 100% of your rent on time. That's a good investment as long as it's small enough. If it's big, it's a waste, and you're actually losing money. So as long as you buy a small house and then you invest in a couple of flats, then you're going to probably be in the best situation. It's not a huge difference. I mean, if you bought 3 or 4 properties and you continue to rent, that would be okay. I would say that's the second best choice. The problem there is, of course, going to be that you're not taking advantage of that one golden tenant that you get to have by owning your own place and paying the rent on time. And then I would say that the worst choice though would be to buy houses now, like 3 or 4 properties, and then buy a large size or medium size house for you. Don't do that until you're well off, right? If you're in this mode of starting out and investing, you want to save as much money as possible, because the more money you save, the more money that you're going to be able to invest, and that's going to build you passive income. At some point, yeah, you can buy your medium or big size house if you want, but wait, do that way later on. The smaller you can reduce your expenses to, the faster you're going to accelerate your pace to retirement. And then the less that you're going to need to retire. You can learn to live on less, and you're going to be better off. So if your goal is sort of early retirement, that's the advice I would suggest. So you can tell your wife that she's right in this case. And thanks for the question, though. It's an interesting question. I think you can't go wrong by doing some kind of investment. I mean, either one of these choices is going to be better than doing nothing. Whatever you do, don't sit on this and debate this forever. Do something, take action. Either one of those choices is going to be better than doing nothing at all. And in 10 years down the road, you'll be glad that you did something. But if you want, what I think is the optimal solution, buy a small house and live in it, and then buy a couple of others with the money that you have, and you'll be in good shape. Anyway, if you have a question for me, even about real estate, you can email me at john@simpleprogrammer.com, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.